Okay, so again, if you guys could all leave your cameras off, this is a recording on story development, and I will have this video available for you to view later as well. I see Lisa, you're here.
Yeah.
If you don't want to watch this whole thing, you do not have to, because you're a repeating student. And what I'm going to do for the new students and for the repeating students is I'm recording the lectures to be sent out. Did you have any specific questions before I started?
No, but I figured since I'm kind of having trouble reworking my full story outline, and I think today is you're covering story outlines and synopses and everything, it couldn't hurt me to listen again.
Beautiful. Then I'm going to break into it, and when I'm done recording, then we can have a little Q&A, and then we go away. And again, so today's lecture is how to reduce your story, how to sharpen your story, and also how to develop characters. And I want everybody who's listening to this to have an idea. This will be totally useless to you unless you have an idea that you want to develop. So take an idea out, or take several ideas out, and as I'm talking, answer the questions, in order, and if you have questions, and you get sort of hung up, take notes, and at the end we can have a Q&A as to how to work through it. But you should be working through your story, so in a week from now you should be able to talk to me about your story. I'm going to share my screen now. Okay. These are the, as I said, this is a synopsis that I sent you. These are most of the stories we talked about last week. And these are literally the stories reduced down to 250 words. We call that in the business an elevator pitch. And it's what I want from you for this class. I just want enough so I can see your story. And in addition to this, you're going to email me a list of the 6 most important characters in your story. But how do you come up with your story, the spine of your story? And that's what I'm talking about today, the spinal elements. The spine of your story is what holds it together, what creates the beginning, middle, and end, what creates the conflict that is your story. And the most important thing to know is whatever story you're thinking, whether it's a short film, or a feature film or an episode, it's a conflict. And it's a conflict where a character has a problem. And the problem can be with another person, the problem can be the world or an environment. It has a problem that needs to be worked out. And worked out, it should be very difficult for that problem to be worked out. And a problem needs to be worked out in terms of a conflict. And the reason conflict is so crucial for visual storytelling is we have to see characters in action. So when you're pitching your story to me and you're developing your story, I am going to be looking to say, is this hard enough to challenge a character and to sustain a story that can last 90 minutes, 10 minutes, whatever the form that you're going to choose, right? On a problem, and it's in a significant enough problem where we care and we wonder if it can be achieved, which is key. Can it be achieved? Now, the first thing you're going to talk about before we identify the elements of your spine that create a conflict is, what is it you are writing? In the spinal elements, what is it you are writing? What exactly is this? And one thing that nobody takes serious enough, and if you take this piece serious enough, you don't have to solve the title to your story right away, but every story that you're writing needs to have a title. And when you're pitching your story, you should have a title, right? It's much more important than you think. A great title will raise a question. A great title will get me to want to read your script. You can look at the titles of some of the scripts we talked about last week. And as I'm looking through here, Clerks is a good title because Clerks tells me about what this movie is set in a store, right? It's about a bunch of clerks who are one's trying to figure out, should I be with this girl? Should I not be with this girl? Should I go back to school or not? It's a good title. It gives us atmosphere. It's not a great title. You look at the title Napoleon Dynamite. Now that is a fantastic title. It lets me know Napoleon Dynamite tells me that this is going to be a different story. Napoleon is actually the title name of the character. Dynamite gives us an idea that this is going to be something that is going to have some sort of like dynamism to it, some sort of imagery to it. It's a hooky title, right? It's a hooky title. Same with Little Miss Sunshine. Little Miss Sunshine, we talked about that, how it was the perfect beginning, middle, and end story, right? It is a title that lets me know there's going to be funny here, but there could be a tinge of irony. Now, the best title on the page is My Big Fat Greek Wedding. It is such a great title that you probably do not even need a synopsis. We know that it's a romantic comedy. We know that it's going to be funny. And the title was so great that it's used over and over and over again, right? Over and over again. You have TV shows, you know, my big fat blank wedding, my big fat this and that. Such a great title, right? Such a great title that if you have a title as good as Greek Wedding, you're going to get me to go beyond your synopsis to look at your screenplay, right? And what I'm looking for in the title is, is it, you know, does it give me a hint of what your story's about? Does it give me a hint of what genre you might be writing? Is this a comedy? Is this a drama? And the minimum I'm going to want to know from all of you beginning writers is, what is it? And it's going to start with, you know, in addition to the title, you're going to tell me in the beginning of your pitch, is this a drama or a comedy? That's not enough in the business, but it's enough for the beginning screenwriter. We're going to get a little more nuance. What kind of drama, what kind of comedy is this? Let's look at more titles though, real quick. Dazed and Confused, high school coming of age movie, right? It's a fantastic title. It's actually the title of a Led Zeppelin song that Linklater took and used for the movie. But Dazed and Confused says everything you would need to know about a high school coming of age movie. They are dazed and confused. Implies comedy, implies drug use, which it's not what it's exactly about, but gives us a hook into it. It's a fantastic title. American Graffiti, Lucas's movie that we talked about. Nostalgia, look back at a period of time. A very, very hooky title that worked for its time, right? Whiplash, on the movie, the coming of age movie, or the follow your dream movie that I suggested everybody watch, is perfect because it's the name of the song they're practicing. It is what happens to the character, right? He literally gets whiplash, but it's also this sudden, jarring sort of dramatic movie about following your dream. Now, I would say the best, you know, the best example of a title that is an on the nose title that worked, it does everything that I'm asking for. Big Fat Greek Wedding is the best title. Snakes on a Plane, right? The title
Yeah.
Snakes on a Plane. Now, Snakes on a Plane is a horrible movie, but it lets me know it's got genre in there. We got a thriller. We got, you know, we got Jeopardy, we got snakes on a plane. I literally don't need to say something else. If I had a movie star attached to that, they would say, make that movie. Now, I'm not asking you to come up with a Snakes on a Plane title when you're pitching your story. I'm not asking you to come up with a My Big Fat Greek Wedding. You know, for instance, Clerks is a great title, right? A good title. Swingers, right? They're dancing, they're trying to figure out what they're doing in life. Good title. What I want though, and I require when you're pitching your movie, you need to tell me a title. It's like character. When we get into character development, I need you to name all of your characters. You need to name your movie. You need to name your characters. You might say, why, right? Because you are developing a story. You are in charge of a story. You are the one we're looking for. I want confidence that you know this story. And if you don't know the title of your story, how do I know that you're going to know all the other things that are important? And when you're talking about a character and you don't know that character's name, right? It's not going to instill confidence. Now, to write your story, to have the title of your story, and to have characters' names is going to obviously allow you to write your story. But you need to make me believe that you know this story. So the hook, right? A title, like I said, it's more important than you think. Avoid the cliche. You know, the main thing is, will it get someone to read your script? Will it make me want to at least read your synopsis, right? That you're going to write for me next week. All right. Will it make me want to read your synopsis? Does it raise a question, right? Does your title raise a question? Now, after your title, in your hook, what is new or unique about your story? right? That is the key. If there's anything new or unique about your story, it needs to come right at the top. Blank, title of my movie, My Big Fat Greek Wedding, is, you know, what's unique about it? This is actually based on a true story where my Greek father did not want me to marry a non-Greek, right? This is a true story of how cultures collide and create comedy and conflict, right? But what is it? Maybe you have a story that is similar to another story like Greek Wedding or Snakes on a Plane. However, it is different. If it's like another film, that's great, as long as it's not exactly like another film. A film that had commercial success or critical success that you can compare your idea to is great, because it lets me imagine immediately what your story is like, right? It's like Greek Wedding, yet it's a Vietnamese family, right? Okay, I got it, right? That's what I'm looking for, the uniqueness. Now, if any of you are telling a true story, any of you are telling this is based on, and I don't want it to be a, you know, documentary type of story, but if it's based on an actual experience, an actual true story, you need to say that right at the top, right? You know, you need to say what it is. Now, when we get to genre, right, I want you to be specific. Are you right? Is it an action movie? Is it comedy, drama, horror, animation? I know there's a couple of you who want to do an animated short or an animated feature. I need to know right at the top what it is. Let us know. Don't have me confused at the beginning of your pitch as to what it is you're doing. And the more specific, we know that there's different types of comedies, romantic comedies, there's the bro comedies, right? There's road comedies. What kind of comedy is this? What kind of drama? How heavy is this, right? Are we getting into a thriller? Is this an action comedy? You know, what exactly is it? And again, trying to find other movies that are similar to your movies is really a helpful tool. Not necessary, but helpful. There might be something like completely unique about your story, right? That just makes me want to read your script, makes me want to greenlight your story, you know, that you need to put at the top, that you need to put right at the top. Now, as you're talking about your story, the first thing we're going to talk about after your hook, it will be the main character of your story, you know, your hero or your protagonist. And a lot of you might say, well, I don't really know who my hero is right now. And that's great. But guess what? Writing is about making decisions. And there is a character in all of your stories who drives your story, who defines your story. Who is your protagonist? Your protagonist is the hero who's the dramatic engine, right? And in your story, if you remove this character, there would be no story. That's the character I'm looking for. Maybe you're sifting through it right now. Ask yourself, who is the character? For instance, in a movie that we talked about last week, Some Little Miss Sunshine, which won the Oscar. It's a story of a father who's has bankrupted his family and needs to find a way to get money for a book that he wrote, but he uses his daughter's ability to get into a beauty contest to get her out to the story. And a lot of people might say, who don't really know dramatic structure, would say, oh, it's all of the little girl's story. She wants to go win the beauty contest. No, it's really the father's story, because he is the dramatic engine. He's the one who really has the agenda. If he doesn't decide he needs this money, the story doesn't happen, right? So ask yourself, of all of your characters, who is the character who most defines your story? It's not the one who we like the most. It's the one who is driving it forward. Like if this character wasn't there, the world would be the same. The world would be the same if this character isn't there. And at the end, it's the father who changed. Yeah, absolutely. It is the father who changes in the end. The father, matter of fact, the family falls together in the beginning of the movie, right? And when we do plot analysis and plot structure and looking at character, the father in Sunshine is a horrible father whose family is going to fall apart. It's really a story about a family falling apart. And if he doesn't change, he's not only going to lose his money, he's going to lose his family. At the end, he doesn't achieve his goal. He doesn't get the money, but he does have a family. He has to become a father. And then we'll see, we get the Spinal Elements. That is dramatic need. He's the one who changes, right? He's the one who changes. Your protagonist has to want something very, very badly. It needs to have a sense of desperation, right? Sense of desperation, right? In Clerks, you know, Dante he has one day to try to find his ex-girlfriend because she's going to get married, and he has to decide between which relationship he wants. Napoleon, right, wants this girl badly and finally takes action to try to help his friend win the election, all to impress her, right? Swingers, we talked about last week. This is the Jon Favreau, the creator of Iron Man and Elf and all of the Star Wars, Mandalorian. This is a simple movie about he has to decide if he's going to go back to New York to the girl, or he's going to stay. He needs to make the decision, and time is running out. Greek Wedding is very simple. It is the daughter who's making the decision to convince the father to marry someone out of the culture, right? So this character is so crucial because it allows you to learn how to choose the first few scenes of your movie, choose the first act of your movie, develop the second act of your movie. So thinking about this character is a very important decision to make. And you're probably not gonna be able to make it right now until I get more into the story development right here. But I want you to think right now, who is the character who needs to drive the conflict? There's a great movie, a movie that I recommend everyone to see. I try to keep my stories within the last 10 to 15 years, but there is a great story and where you might not know who the protagonist is, and it's a great Oscar-winning story called Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. And you have Butch and Sundance. Butch is the brain. Sundance is the one who's willing to take action. Oh, you think, oh, wait, Sundance must be the hero because Sundance uses his gun, takes action. No, it's Butch who comes up with the ideas to rob the trains, rob the banks, escape to Bolivia. It's the one who doesn't necessarily do the action, but if you remove that character from the story, there is no story. It's Butch is like the father in Little Miss Sunshine. So it's a way it could be like, if you have two characters, you're not sure, Butch, Sundance, who's the one who's really the brains, who's the driving dramatic force behind the story? That's the one who we're looking for, and we're searching for this. And believe me, after we make the decision who are the 6 most important characters in your story, you might, as you start to outline your story, you might realize, aha, I have my hero. I have the wrong hero. I have the wrong hero. Now, before I get into the biggest decision that you're going to make after selecting your hero is what your hero wants. And it's the goal. And the goal is it's the most important decision that you will make to see if you can structure your story. Hero's goal will allow everyone in your pitch to see your structure. And what do I mean by that? Whatever your hero wants, the external action going after something that is specific and concrete will allow us to see your story, right? Specific and concrete, get bicycle, get boy, get girl, get love, find love, whatever it is. And I do give this example of 2 stories with the exact same goal that are radically different. They're very specific, and it's both stories are to get a bicycle. One story is called The Bicycle Thief, and it's an older movie, and it's probably one of the most powerful movies ever made. It's post-World War Italy, and a father has a bicycle, and the bicycle allows him to feed his family. If he has a bicycle, he can go out and get work. Bicycle gets stolen, and the whole movie is about trying to get his bicycle back. He takes his son with him, and he has literally, if he doesn't find it within that day, he's not gonna have the bicycle, they're gonna starve. It's very specific, and it's one day, and it's the stakes, and this is what we're talking about. The stakes are so high. What are the stakes, right? If something's a stake, he can't feed his family if he doesn't have this bicycle. So he looks and he looks and he looks, and at the end, he attempts to steal a bicycle, and he becomes the bicycle thief. It's really, 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 heavy and sad. And the son sees him the bicycle, sees him arrested, etc. It's really a dark, dark story, and the same simple goal. There's another movie, an 80s comedy with a goal where someone loses their bicycle and desperately wants to find their bicycle back, yet it's a completely different movie. It's called Pee-wee's Big Adventure. It's a light, ridiculous comedy that was a very successful comedy for its time, yet that specific action, Pee-wee does get his bicycle back, and he goes from being a loner to having friends, right? But the specific goal, and this is what I want you to think about, what your hero wants is something very, very specific. Let's look at some goals, let's look at some goals in the movies we talked about. Clerks, I already told you, he has to make a decision. He's going to go with the right girl or go with the wrong girl. He doesn't know what the right girl is. We know, the one who brings him lasagna, the one who wants him to go to college. He's going to make the wrong decision, right? And lose them both. Napoleon Dynamite, right? If he wants the girl, right? Win the election to get the girl. Sunshine, right? Get the family on the road to Sunshine to really save the book deal. Swingers, make the decision, right? Go after career, not go after career. Greek Wedding, goal, very simple. Convince father to marry non-Greek. Dazed and Confused is a fantastic, I love, this is probably one of my favorite movies of all time because it is so much deeper than it appears. High school, coming of age story. The football player, right, has one day to sign a drug pledge not to hang out with his diverse group of friends, right? The coach does not like what Randall, Pink Floyd, his decisions he's making. So he forces the whole team to sign this, and he has one day to decide, and it builds to a party, and he sees the diversity of friends, and he, at the end of the movie, tells the coach, no, I'm not signing it, drives off with the people he's not supposed to hang out with, making a choice. I'd rather choose my own friends than be told who to choose. Fantastic, specific, right? What sign, makes the decision not to. American Graffiti, one night to decide if you're going to go away to college, right? One night decided you're going to go away to college. Juno is a very specific goal, and the specific goal for Juno was, we're pregnant. The main protagonist is pregnant and has 9 months to find the right parents, right? And when I told you we flipped the story around, it's a different type of story because the pregnant teenager is the most powerful character in the story, right? And she has 9 months. It's very good. Superbad follows Superbad, the Seth Rogen comedy we talked about last week. The goal is very specific. We have one night to try to go, before they go away to college, They want to hook up and not be virgins before they go away to college. They fail, but they learn that they're going to move on and become adults, right? Hurt Locker, we talked about, is a there's 6 months left, right? Can they survive the 6 months? And what shakes up the story is the craziest character shows up who's willing to do anything to defuse a bomb. So every scene there's a bomb in it, and the whole movie has a deadline on it. And Whiplash, our protagonist wants to be the best drummer in the school. He wants to impress the professor in the school, and he's willing to do anything to get that role, right? So the goal will allow us, as I'm saying, the goal will allow you to structure your story, right? It'll allow you by in your pitch saying, he has one night to decide to sign the drug pledge. He has one night to decide if she's going to go away to college. He desperately wants this boy. He desperately wants to find a parent for this, for this baby that's going to be born. By doing that, in my mind, when I see the pitch, when I hear your pitch, I can see how your story sets up, complicates, and resolves, which is exactly what writing is. Setting up a conflict, milking the conflict, raising the stakes in the conflict, and resolving the conflict. If you have a vague goal, it's going to be really, really hard, really, really hard for you to set up your story. Now, one thing I want you to think about when you're coming up, who's your hero? What is the specific goal? That there must be something at stake. Then the minimum that has to be at stake is your hero, your protagonist, is true happiness, right? All of the coming of age movies, let's stick with Dazed and Confused. If he decides to only sign the pledge and not be able to socialize with all of his other friends and just hang out with the football team by signing the drug pledge, he will not be as well-rounded and happy, and he will be limited in himself to just a few friendships. And you know what? We relate to him, and we're all glad he makes that decision at the end of the movie, right? That's happiness is enough. Now, life and death is the best. In the movie we talked about last week, Fruitvale Station, right? You know, life and death is at stake, right? Life and the death is at stake. If you have a movie, and this is what I told you guys last week, if you do have a movie where there's jeopardy, right? Like you've been in a dangerous situation, like I said, I had students who used to go off to combat back when Iraq and Afghanistan was a big deal. And even though they weren't directly in harm's way, all of them, they had the potential at any moment to be killed, and that really creates a pressure, right? So life and death is something, but what is at stake? Ask yourself, how much time, right, do I have to get this done? What's at stake? When I say how much time, there needs to be a sense of pressure, and the best way to create this pressure is when your story is set up, your audience, whether it's me listening to it, whether it's me reading your synopsis, I can see how much that there's a limited amount of time for this story to take place. Because if there's an unlimited amount of time for the story to take place, a lifetime, and there are movies with lifetimes, then we got to set clocks through stages, right? But if you do have that one night, the 9 months, the one semester, that allows you to structure your story. We see beginning, middle, and end, and time creates pressure, right? So a terminal point in your story, right? As we look at the stories, right? Clerks, it's one day, right? Because of the marriage. Napoleon Dynamite, it doesn't appear that he wants the girl, there's an election. And at the end of there's an election that Pedro's going to win or lose, right? Sunshine, 3 days to get the sunshine. Swingers, there's not a specific clock, right? So the pressure is, will he be able to find someone, right, before he wants to go home? Not a direct clock. Greek wedding, there is a time that they want to get married, and there's a period that father needs to convince, because they want the wedding to happen. There is pressure here, right? Dazed and Confused, one night, right? American Graffiti, one night. Juno, 9 months. Superbad, one night. Hurt Locker, 6 months. You know, Whiplash, a semester, right? If I can say it that quickly in your movie, you will be doing yourself a favor, right? You won't be searching for structure. Goal creates your structure, beginning, middle, and end. And this is probably the most important thing I'm going to tell you. Why I want you to come up with a specific concrete goal is I can see the beginning, middle, and end of your story. And the beginning, middle, and end of your story, that's what storytelling is. We get to meet a character, we get to understand a character, we get to empathize with a character, we know what that character wants, we see that character fight for it. This is the middle. They fight, they succeed, they fail, they succeed, they fail, they change. They become wiser, they become more knowledgeable, they grow up, right? They learn who really is their friend, who really isn't there, and they change. They become a better father, they become a better mother, they become a better brother, a better sister, and then they get what they want or not. And you don't have to have your heroes get what they want. You know, I'm not this is not a required happy ending class. It's often more poignant if your hero doesn't get what he, she, or they want, and there's still change. Now, as far as spinal elements go, right? What is it? Crucial. Who do we care about? Crucial, right? What do they want? Crucial. Before I get a little deeper, though, I'm going to go into some sort of character development for you, right? Before I hit the last 2 points of the spine, right? You realize that the most important thing in a movie is not the structure, it's the characters in the movie. And what I've been asking you to do is identify the one character who is the most important character in the movie. but maybe we should talk about all of the characters who might be in your movie before we narrow down that one character who's going to shape your movie, give your movie the beginning, middle, and end, give your movie its structure, right? Let's talk about how many characters you will need in a movie, right? If what you're writing right now is going to be a feature film, and I always say start with a feature and then we can reduce it down to a short, right? But if it's a feature, you're going to need 6 developed characters. If it's a TV series, you're going to need 6 developed characters. And this is not a formula. This is just like, you need to start with 6, right? If you can have 6 characters, and you're going to have to do all these things that I'm about to tell you, right? This is how we do, this is character development. If you can come up with 6 characters and you can describe all the things I'm going to ask you to describe about these characters, I should see your story without talking about plot. In fact, when I do story training at DreamWorks, the first thing we do is when we look at a story. I did this with Madagascar 3. I did this with Kung Fu Panda 3, ironically 2 3s, and Croods 2. Where I said, okay, let's list the 6 most important characters. Took the story team, let's list your 6 most important characters in order of importance. That's not a test. And why? Tell me why, right? And all of these sort of categories I'm going to give you comes up. And you need, when you're talking about a character, you need to talk about all of these things. And when we identify 6 characters, right, who are going to do what, most importantly, promise conflict, right, with each other. Even people who get along, there's going to be conflict. Best friends, we have a different way we want to get to the store. We have a different way we want to get to the party. We have a different party we want to go to, right? Conflict allows your characters to interact and to have a story happen, right? So I want 6 characters who can promise conflict, right, for a feature film. Now, you're doing a short film, you're writing a short film, you just need 1, right? Maybe 1 in a problem, maybe 2 in a problem. More than 3 in a short film can be problematic because we don't have that much time for it. But a feature in a series, you need 6 characters, right? 6 characters. So I always say, take your story out for a walk. Let's see if we can get the 6 characters in your story. One thing that there are 2 main characters, right? And I'm gonna go back up here to your spine, right? The type of story you have, a problem or a villain story. You might have a villain, and we'll talk about that in a minute. You might have a clear villain. You might have a Darth Vader. You might have a Tai Lung. You might have Tai Lung as a villain in Panda. You might have a clear villain. That is so helpful if you have a clear villain. Not necessary to write a movie though, but those are your 2 most important characters. Unless it's a short film, that's not enough for a movie. We're going to need more characters, right? And a concept that as you're listing, maybe you're going to list 15 characters out right now. You're going to write down, I'm going to say, give me their names and their age, give me their types. What is their function in your movie, right? These are things that you should be doing right now as I'm speaking, right? Whether you're listening to this recorded or you're listening to it live, this is how you do character development. Take 6 characters right now and list them. One thing to take into account though, is not all the characters are characters that we emotionally invest in, right? They might not be core characters. And one way to think about them, instead of calling them core characters, like think of a solar system, right? You have your 6 key characters, right? You have your 1 major character, your Earth character. This is the character, this is the Earth, this is the central character. But then there's all these other planets that's sort of important, right? Each planet might have characters that help us see these characters more clearly. Like think of them as satellites or moon type of characters. And an example that I'll list is Kung Fu Panda. And I think most people still know, Po, what it is. Po, he wants to be the dragon warrior. Tai Lung is his clear villain, right? And there's Shifu, right? There's characters that are key, but then there's his 5 opponents who might want to be the dragon warrior, and there's 5 of them, and you're like, not all 5 are important. They really are moon characters around Tigress. She's the one who really should have been the dragon warrior in all of their opinions. and the other, Mantis, is not really a character, main character. Monkey is not really a main character. They all sort of revolve around tigers, and they all sort of make the Furious Five, seem, add color to it. So they're not all like driving the story. So as you're sorting through your characters in the beginning, don't really worry about it, but realize that just because they're not a main character does not mean that they might not be in there for comic relief. Like on the Madagascar movies, the penguins, Chiefy's kind of a main character, but not really. They add color. Julian adds color. You might have characters that will add color, to your film that aren't core characters, right? So for this class, you're going to give me this. You're going to give me your spine. Your what is your synopsis, right? Then I would like a character list, right? I would like a character list, and I would like a character list, and I would like to include these things for each character, just like your movie. Everybody in your movie needs a name, right? And I don't care what their complete name is. I want to know what they're called in the movie, right? I want to know what they're called in the movie, right? Just like your story needs a title, your characters need name, right? And the minimum is what they're called in the script. When you're pitching and you say this guy, this girl, this man, this woman, them, they, what, and you say it and you don't give me a name, I don't have confidence in you. And a name is everything, right? First thing you do when somebody is born, you give them a name. You're essentially creating life here. You're going to give them a name, and you're going to give an age. Why must you give an age? Because age creates expectation of behavior. Let me repeat that. Age creates expectation of behavior. I expect someone in their early 20s to behave a certain way, someone in their late 20s to behave a certain way, someone in their early 30s to behave a certain way, late 30s, 50s, 60s, etc. Right? As you get older, maybe the behavior doesn't change, but there's an expectation of behavior. It's really, really more specific with young kids. It's a big difference between a 3-year-old and a 6-year-old, a 6-year-old and a 12-year-old, a 12-year-old and a 15-year-old. Radical changes, right? So just by giving me the age and putting me in the ballpark, early 20s, again, if they're a child, you should give me the specific age, but it allows me, and this is what you want to do in a screenplay and in a pitch and in your screenplay, by giving a name and an age, I'm starting to have an expectation. And that's what you want, an expectation, which leads to the next thing and the most important thing when you're talking about characters, except for what they want. But this is the most important thing when we're talking about how I imagine your characters are their types. Unlike a novel, you don't describe, or in a novel, you would give me what you're wearing, what the character's wearing, color of hair. You would get very detailed, right? You would become the costume designer. You would give very minute detail on who the characters are. For a screenplay, you want to have me actively engage in my imagination. You want the reader, you want the person listening to the pitch to imagine. You want to leave room for the imagination, because guess what? They got to cast this movie, right? So you don't want to be too specific, yet you want to give me a type, right? And you want to give me a type that allows me to imagine, use my imagination. Everybody uses their own personal imagination as to who this character could be, who we might cast, who this, and so you don't want to be so specific as to hair color, skin color, unless it's crucial to the story, right? Fruitvale Station, crucial to the story, right? Do the Right Thing, crucial to the story. But you want to let me use my imagination, right? I want you to be careful. It's okay to start with a stereotype. Call this the Breakfast Club. Take 5 types, and anybody could write this movie. You're in a high school, whatever high school you went to, and there's you, right? Whatever type you may be in that high school. And then there's the other 4 characters. And the cliche in Breakfast Club, there's the jock, there's the nerd, there's the popular girl, there's the outsider girl, and then there's the rebel guy, right? There's those 5 types, and then we're going to take an authority figure, right? This is your principal, right? And he's forcing you guys to do something, right? You have to write, you have to spend the time together, and you have to write an essay about what it is you learned. So you're all stuck together, and then there's this driving force who's forcing you guys into action. There's five of you, right? I would say anybody could write that movie. You take your world, we talked about how world is everything. You take your high school world and you drop yourself into your high school world, wherever you went to high school, and then you take 5 types. Now, I would say that if any of your types are types we've seen before, you freshen them up. You change the types, right? Make the jock, right? Change the gender of the jock, change the sport of the jock, make the popular girl different, don't make it anything we've ever seen, right? Don't make the popular girl, right? Don't make maybe you make the rebel, you know, you flip the popular girl and the rebel, you flip types, you start reimagining it, right? Just so it's fresh. So you can take something we've seen before and make it fresh. I have a student who did this, and he did this in this class years ago. And when I said anybody can write this, I'm literally giving this lecture. I go, anybody could do their Breakfast Club, right? You know, coming of age Breakfast Club story. And I said, but you know, everybody here has gone to high school, right? And he looked at me and he said, no. And I looked at him and said, how could you not gone to high school and be sitting here in this class? How are you in college, right? And he said, I was homeschooled. Like, really? Yeah, I was homeschooled. I go, I haven't seen that movie before. And he developed the protagonist based on himself. And it was a mother who did not want, and he gets into a really good school, a school of his dreams. And mother wants him to stay home and go to a junior college. And I said, you know, that's a really interesting movie, Robert. And he wrote the movie and eventually produced the movie. And we produced it through our production program here. And the movie was so just like I told you guys last week, we did a movie, the Big Fat Greek Wedding movie, but we did it with a Vietnamese, you know, family, Vietnamese daughter, Vietnamese son. And both those movies, the only thing unique about those movies was the types were different. The types were different. They were somehow fresher. And this homeschool movie got into the Austin Film Festival and opened up playing next to a Nebraska, an Alexander Payne movie. All About Dad ended up getting theatrical distribution and played in festivals all over the world. And the only thing different plot, I mean, the stories were the same story as Greek Wedding, the All About Dad movie, the Always Learning movie. The only thing different about the Always Learning movie was that there was not an actual high school, but there was a school. We got to see the group of homeschool kids, and we got this kid who flunks out of school who gets thrown into the homeschool kid, and we get to see him to go into the high school and see what high school's like. You know, you get to see what it is he thought he was missing out on, and eventually stands up to mom, and he does get to go away to college at the end, right? The types, they change the type. So you take your high school movie and you freshen up the types, or you take whatever movie it is and you give me a different type. Now, let me tell you as we go over here, and I think I wrote it out here, but this is all I need, right? So Napoleon Dynamite, a quirky ninja-loving teenager growing up in the far reaches of Idaho. Perfect. He's a quirky ninja-loving teenager. That's all we say about Napoleon Dynamite. That's what I need. I need to imagine, you know, what type of a person this is. And it's great. We got far reaches of Idaho. We get the world, we get the type in there, right? You just need to let me imagine, you know, imagine how your character might be. So one thing I want you to do for all 6 of your characters, I want names, ages, and importantly, what type of person is this, right? If it's a nerd, be more specific. What kind of a nerd? If it's a bully type of character, what kind of bully type of character? But don't give me more than, you know, 3 or 4 you know, I won't say 3 or 4 words. I won't pin you that, but don't give me more than a sentence on describing this character, because this is going to actually go into your screenplay. When we write the type, we're going to actually drop this as the language of the screenplay. Napoleon, a ninja loving teenager, would be in the screenplay, right? So type, I can't tell you, and a type to allow me to imagine. Now, let me tell you a story. How am I doing for time? Oh, I'm doing fantastic for time. I'll tell you a true story. And if you've had my class before, you've heard this story, but one time, I used to do this exercise in class. We used to look around. I say, look at this person, look at this person, give me their type. And eventually that exercise went from a fantastic exercise to an exercise that is an unnecessary exercise in a live class. But I was typified one time. When I was young, years and years ago, I'd written a screenplay that was picked up by someone who's in the music industry. And the producer was a member of a band, and the band they had a pitch, and they got successful, and they actually ended up making the movie. And they radically changed the script. There was a script that I initially wrote, and I went to the meeting to meet all of the producers, and I walked up to this sort of like, it was in a cafe, sort of in Vegas, extravagant sort of cafe, and I walked in, and they were like, again, they were like late 90s rockers, and this is the time was running out on them. I walked into the meeting, and they all were casually dressed, neck tattoos, like looked like they could go. And one of the guys was in Guns N' Roses. One guy was in a band called Motley Crue, and you look them up, you'll see that they were, at the time, I thought it was like, it's a really big deal. And as I walked into the meeting, I had on khaki pants and a tucked in blue shirt. And one of the guys who didn't know me just said this: who the F is the Gap guy, and what the F is he doing here? And I was like, holy shit, right? And if I was gonna write the scene, I would say interior, Caesar's Palace, Spago, a bunch of 80s glam rockers sit around the table, tattoos, the whole business. Barnaby, 23, right out of a Gap commercial, walks up. Matt, who the fuck is this guy, right? Gap guy, perfect, right? I never wore khakis again. I never tucked in my shirt again, right? I was like, oh, but wow, I was typified, right? Just by how I looked, right? Didn't fit in here. You need to do that with all of your characters. You need to do all that with your characters. So you get name, age, types, and I want you to say, what do you see this character's function in the story, right? And character's function in the story relates, now I'm taking you back to your spine. And again, to get this paragraph, you got to have your hook, your hero, right? The name, your hook. What kind of movie is this? What's the title of your movie? What are we watching? Is it funny? Is it serious? Is there something that it's like? What's the name of this hero? What does this hero want? This hero's goal, the boy, girl, bicycle, gun, job, whatever this hero wants, needs to be in conflict with everybody else. And so when I'm asking you, what is your character's function in the story? What I'm really asking you is, what does this other character want, right? And it's sort of a blurry thing, not really a blurry thing, but everybody has a function in the story. We're a protagonist, we're an antagonist, we're a mentor, we're an ally. So ask yourself, is this character going to be the antagonist? Is this character a mentor character? What's a mentor character? The cliche mentor character is the Obi-Wan, the Obi-Wan mentor, right? How do you make your mentor character not a cliche character? We did this in Panda. We had Shifu hate his student. He did not want, he was a mentor who did not like his panda that he wanted to convert, right? Is this character an ally? The minimum I want to know is, what is your character's function? What do you think at this time, before you write one scene, what do you think this character's, is it a protagonist, antagonist, mentor, and ally, right? All characters, right? All these 6 characters need to have a unique purpose, right? And when you list out a bunch of characters who have the same function, this is an antagonist, this is an antagonist, this is an ally, this is an ally, these are multi-mentor characters, right? And when I say ally, You know, the ally can be an ally to the protagonist, or the can ally to the antagonist. You know, that's a way to think of it, right? And even antagonists can have mentors. You know, Darth Vader has a mentor, right? What I want you to do is, I want you to pick the strongest one of these characters. And if you can eliminate the other ones, right, you can combine them into one stronger character, or put them off to the side for now and let them not be a primary character. Let them not be a core character. Have them be a moon character, a secondary character, right? But I'm interested in characters' function, and you're not going to figure this out right away, but start thinking about function. And how do you think about function? What are those characters' goals, right? What do they want in the movie? Everybody has to want something in a movie. If you have a character, and we did this for Croods, and we got down to character 5 and 6, and they didn't have clear goals in the first Croods. And one of the biggest things we did in Croods 2 was we need to give these two characters more specific goals that clash with what our primary, our antagonist, or protagonist want, right? So I want to know what your characters want, and does it enhance the conflict? Does it make it harder for your character to get what he or she wants? Those are the characters I'm looking for. Does it make it harder? Even if it's an ally, like Greek Wedding, mom, right? Mom and dad, you know, dad certainly doesn't want outsider. Mom, you know, wants daughter to be happy, but she's torn, right? She's torn, right? Conflict. I want you to create conflict, right? So you're going to list out, again, this is real simple exercise, right? What's the name? How old are they? It's going to allow me to expectation. What kind of character is this? Can you give me a type in less than a sentence? Can you give me the character's function, right? Specifically, what do you think this character wants? And it could be to stop and prevent the hero from getting what he or she wants, or they want, right? It could be to convince the hero to, you know, go about what they want in a completely different way, right? Great. Why? It's implying conflict, right? Now, the key to writing dialogue, right? The key to writing dialogue is to, one, create conflict. Create conflict. You put people in a room and there's no conflict and scenes are unfocused. All a scene is, I'm jumping ahead, but all a movie is a conflict. All a scene is a conflict. A scene is one conflict that has a beginning, middle, and end. That's what a scene is a conflict that has a beginning, middle, and end. A movie has a beginning, middle, and end, right? So everything, as I say, is conflict. And when you put people in a room and there's a conflict that they have to overcome, they say things they normally wouldn't say. That reveals who people really are. That's why conflict is key. But you know what else allows you to write great conflict or great dialogue? Is you got to know what the real relationships of this character. And there's a relationship in every single situation when characters enter a room. There's a relationship. If they don't know each other, that's the relationship. Like in Whiplash, right? The first time they meet each other, the first scene, we'll study this scene. The Fletcher, the professor, does not know, right, who Naaman is, but Naaman knows who he is, and Naaman knows he's the key. And it's this conflict of this test, right? Know the relationship. Do they get along? Do they not get along? Because if somebody secretly can't stand somebody, it's going to come out in the dialogue. It's going to come out in the dialogue and the action, right? Great dialogue has subtext. And what is subtext? It's what they really mean. We rarely say what we really mean to anybody unless we know them really, really well, right? And that's why on their function, if this character is an ally, right? Oh, this might be a great character to get some exposition in. What is exposition? Information, especially in the first act. We need to understand the story. Comes out easily in conflict. Does not come out, right? If there's no conflict in the scene. And if there's a relationship in the scene and you understand the relationship, these two secretly hate each other. This person is in love with this other person. And we know that. And when you write the scene, we'll say, wow, why did they say that line like that? Why is that like that? Why? I don't understand. A great movie to study this relationships is a movie, a Scorsese movie called The Departed. And I'm going to talk about a huge concept in writing is creating dramatic irony. What is dramatic irony? When we, the audience, has a privileged view, we know more, right? We know more. We see, we know there's a killer in the room. We know all that. Well, in relationships, that all you have to do is show us something that the other character doesn't like, right? We know that this cop is really a villain. We know this villain is really a cop, and we know they're looking for each other, right? There's subtext all the way through that movie because we know more, right? We know the relationships, and I'll show you how to manipulate that as we do scene structure and story structure. But for you, I want to know, like, how does this, as a minimum, what does the antagonist think of the protagonist? What does the protagonist think of the antagonist, right? And how do all the key relationships work? Now, when you list out the 6 characters, just give me the key relationship for each character. Now, here's something that is crucial. It's the flaw, right? And the flaw is what's a matter with your character. All great characters have a flaw, and it's something that they need to overcome. You know, what's wrong with this character? You're telling us a movie, you're creating us a story because there's something wrong with this character, and this story is going to address this flaw, and we're going to see what this character needs to change, right, in order to get the goal, get what he or she wants, right? Now this every single character in your movie should have a flaw, right? Unflawed characters are really not very interesting characters. For example, Superman is the boringest superhero there is because there's not much wrong with Superman, right? Whereas Batman is way more interesting than Superman because Batman doesn't have superpowers, can't do everything, has a darker background, right? That's why, as I dramatically knocked over my pens, Iron Man was such a great character, flawed character. And in its cinematic universe, there's a reason that Captain America in the Avengers, Captain America in the comic world, Captain America is more like a Superman character. There's not much wrong with Captain America, right? Except you always want to do the right thing. Not a very dynamic character. Iron Man, a much more dynamic character. There's a reason why Marvel started with Iron Man. Favreau started with Iron Man, because here is a philanderer, just billionaire who does not care about society, who gets stuck in a cave and finds out that his work, his family's work, creating these weapons is actually destroying, you know, lives in parts of the world he did not understand. And by him designing this suit and getting out of the cave, he realizes that he needs to avenge what his family had and him has perpetuated, and he becomes, you know, an Avenger, literally, and then he puts together a team, and then it gets bigger and bigger, and the stakes rise until he dies, right? But he's a much more interesting character because he has flaws. He's shallow, he's superficial, he's greedy, and he changes and ultimately sacrifices himself. Much more interesting character than Superman, right? Than Superman. Kryptonite's about it, right, for Superman. Which leads me to the next part of your spine as doing through character development, and that's your dramatic need. So I'm going to review again, right? We're talking character development. Now your spine really is just a deep analysis of what is the story, what is the world, what kind of movie is this? It's a deep analysis of the most important character. Who is your hero? Who is your protagonist, right? What is their name, right? What is their type? Right? What is their type, right? What is their goal? What do they want, right? What do they want? What will define them? What implies action? What do they want to get? Boy, get girl, right? Wipe out, you know, shut down Stark Enterprises. What do they want? What's at stake? Is there a clock on it? What's the structure? Actions. And now here's the difference between a good movie and a bad movie. And this is for your hero. It's for all your characters, really for your hero. A goal, a clear, concrete goal will allow you to structure a story. Sure, it will. It won't allow you to write a great story, right? What does your hero need to change in order to accomplish this goal, right? What does Downey Jr. need to change? Or what does Tony Stark need to change? He needs to change everything, he needs to get rid of his ego, and he needs to be willing to sacrifice himself. And every movie is about him, right? He takes step, in the first Iron Man, the Avengers, he doesn't quite die. He almost dies. Oh, eventually he's gonna die, right? He needs to like sacrifice everything. Eventually he even gives up. He makes the choice to give up what he really truly loves. Finally has a family, and he's willing to give that up for society, for the world. But what does your hero need to change in order to accomplish their goal, right? As we look at this movie, right? In Clerks, Dante, right? Dante really needs to realize, let go of the past. Look at the relationship you have. This is the relation. This is the person who cares about you. He fails, right? What does Napoleon Dynamite need to change in order to get love, get the relationship, right? He needs to take a risk. He needs to take a risk. He needs to come out of the shadows, right? And what does he do? He actually takes a huge risk, and he becomes, he dances, he gets in front of the whole school. He's willing to humiliate himself. He's not going to be an outsider. We'd already talked about this, the father in Little Miss Sunshine. It's not enough to get the daughter to the beauty pageant, right? And get the book deal along the way, right? It's, what does he need to change? He needs to become a real father. And in the beginning of the movie, so great. He gets down on a knee and he tells Olive, tries to stop his daughter from eating ice cream so she can do well. And would Miss America eat ice cream? And at the end, when he sees that the worst thing he possibly could have done for his daughter is to put her in this environment where it's all surface judgmental, and she's up there and they say, hey, we're here, let her go through with it. And he sees that the audience and the crowd, she just cannot dance. She has no talent, right? He didn't know this because he didn't pay any attention to her. He jumps onto the stage and makes a fool out of himself. And the whole family gets up and protects Olive so she doesn't get humiliated. He becomes a father, they become a family, right? He needs to become a father who really loves. Swingers is the I Need a Dream story. Decide if you're going to stay and produce your live streams. What does Mike need to do? The Favreau character need to do? He needs to let go of the past, let go of the relationship, and be willing to fully take a chance on this life of trying to be an actor. He needs to let go. He needs to let go, and he does let go. He does let go. Greek Wedding, what does she need to do? She actually can never quite stand. She needs to actually directly confront her father and tell her father that this relationship is so important that I will sacrifice my relationship with you and this family for it. And he realized that family is more than just culture. Family is love, right? Greek Wedding, not Greek Wedding, Dazed and Confused, kind of went through it, right? But what does Randall need to do? Randall needs to be afraid not to be on the team. He needs to be afraid not to be a part of a clique he needs to be not to be afraid to stand up to people who he thinks are his friends, right? Juno, right? God, she trying to find the parents for her baby. She can't find them. Right, the Jason Bateman character is horrible, right? He's horrible, and she realizes that when she's not going to be with the Jennifer Garner story. She needs to say, "There's no such thing as a perfect family." She needs to realize that what she's looking for is a perfect family. And so she gives up to a single mom, gives this baby to a single mom. There is no such thing as the perfect family that she was looking for. Superbad, trying to not go to college, right? And they're hanging on. They have secrets. That one of them is going to room with somebody that is not one of their quote unquote inner circle. They need to let go of their past and they need to embrace their future. And that's what they do. They're going to grow apart. It's a great movie because it's two people who need to grow apart from each other, right? Grow apart from each other. The dramatic need, right? The dramatic need is everything. It gives your movie, even in Marvel movies, the ones with the dramatic needs, I say even, especially in movies like that, if there isn't something that the character needs to change, we won't emotionally invest in this character. So as you're pitching, what is the goal? What do they need to change about themselves? It could be something that's missing from the character's life, right? It could be something that they greatly desire, right? But it needs to tie directly to the hero's goal. needs to tie directly to the hero's goal. It's a dramatic need. Now let's stay on here. I said there might be a second, we're talking about your character development. Well, what will give your story its complete shape? I got a hero, I got a hook, I got a hero, I got a goal, I got a need, the dramatic need that ties to this goal, that if the character doesn't change, this goal will not be attained. And sometimes that's the structure of the story. They don't change in time, they don't get what they want, and they realize it's too late. Shape of the story, the end. And I want everybody to think of the end of your story. Always be thinking about the end of your story. Always be looking towards the end of your story. Why should you be looking towards the end of your story, right? Because the end will tell us what type of story we have. And what most people don't realize, when you're looking at a story, every story will have someone who drives it, right? Someone who drives it. But not all stories have a villain. Some stories are a problem. And so you need to ask yourself, and you might not figure this out until you actually plot your story, but think about this, right? Does your hero, does your protagonist need to defeat somebody? Is there a Darth Vader? Is there an Apollo in the Rocky movies? Is there a Tai Lung in Kung Fu Panda, where everything that the conflict is building towards is this person? In the end, this person is defeated or not defeated, and dramatic need is answered, everything is rectified. A villain story, if it's a clear villain story, that's the easiest thing to plot, because villain in pursuit of character, character in pursuit of villain, right? But most stories, right, are actually stories of problems that a protagonist needs to overcome. A blueprint for this is one of the greatest comedies in the last 15 years is a movie called The Hangover. And it's weird when you forget about two's okay, three, but the first one is so well done, right? It's a lesson in how to write comedy, right? And comic characters, right? But it's a real simple story, right? Group, someone's going to get married. Two friends and a brother-in-law, go to Vegas for a bachelor party. The night gets away from them. They get drugged. They don't remember anything that happened. Groom is gone. The whole movie is about them trying to find the groom. That's the whole movie. And the problem isn't just to find the groom. You got to find the groom and get the groom back in time for the wedding. It has all the clock. It has everything that you need, but it's not. There is a villain, right? There's a villain who shows up, the Kim Jong character, but he's answered, he's met, he has the wrong Doug, and there's still more to figure out. They figure out Doug's on the roof, right? It's this problem that must be solved, and everything leads to the solving of this problem. They eventually find the right Doug, but then they have to get to the wedding on time. They get to the wedding on time. Groom is happy, right? The Bradley Cooper character, we see that he's actually happy with his life. The dentist character is going to leave his wife and realize that there's more to it. The Zach character, is now no longer a loner. He actually has a group of real friends, and everything is rectified and put together at the end, right? But it's a problem that needs to be overcome. Now, here's a movie that most of you will think is a villain story, and it's not, is The Wizard of Oz. And everybody knows The Wizard of Oz, right? You got Dorothy, she's not happy. Nobody's paying attention to her. Some lady's trying to take her dog away. She tries to run away. She gets zipped up into a tornado. She lands in this crazy world of Oz, and she has to. She lands. She has she killed the witch of the East. She has her shoes on. The witch of the West, I want your shoes. Dorothy wants to go home. She has an ally, mentor figure say, go this way, follow the Yellow Brick Road. Yellow Brick Road is your second act, right? You might think that this witch in pursuit, the witch is an antagonist, but it's not a villain, right? An antagonist, but not a villain, because Dorothy's problem is not to defeat the witch, it's to get home. right? So she's on the road. She has to get witch chasing all the road. She gets in Oz. The Oz doesn't give her what she wants. She got to get the witch's broom. She has to confront the witch. She gets the broom. Movie's not over. She has to get back. She realizes Oz is a fraud. Glenda comes back and says, it was in you all along, this journey. Getting home is the problem, right? But there's a clear antagonist in there, not a villain. Though. There's a difference between an antagonist and a villain. The villain is that person who needs to be defeated in order for the movie to survive. Most movies are not villain movies, and most people make the mistake of like, oh my God, what is problem villain? So when you're pitching your story to me, I want you to tell me what it is. I want you to give me a title. I want you to let me know, is it comedy, drama, horror, animation? What is it? And be specific. What's fresh and unique to it? What is the name of this person, right? What does this person want that is clear, that defines action? What does this character need to change about themselves or their world, right? Themselves or their world, right? To achieve this. What is the problem or the person who needs to be overcome, right? That gives me a sense of your story, of where your story is. And that's essentially what all of these paragraphs are. That's what all of these paragraphs are. You have all of the spinal elements in these paragraphs, right? All of these spinal elements in these paragraphs. But that's what we call the elevator pitch. That's enough for me to see the beginning, middle, and end of your story, but I need the rest of the characters, right? And this is why I ask. The studio will not ask you for it. They'll ask you for your elevator pitch, right? And then they'll read your synopsis and they'll ask you for a script and or a treatment, right? A script and or a treatment. But there's more. There's more to developing your characters that will deepen your story, that will allow you that will allow you to write your story. And what I'm going to do before you pitch, I'm going to finish this character today. I'm going to finish the character, and then on Wednesday, we're going to go through this, checking your story, and hopefully you're developing your stories. What I hope that you do today is you come with some spinal elements to your story today, and you do the character exercise today, and then I'm going to pour you through. I'm going to throw these questions at you on Wednesday. Questions that you should ask yourself as you're developing your story. Right, that's what we're going to do. But I'm going to finish the character for today. So, as important as what's wrong with your character, the flaws in your characters, right? Are there any huge secrets? Some movies are all there's a secret, right? Somebody is hiding something, right? And the secrets can be as simple as, hey, this character is having an affair, right? This character is not a faithful character, a secret could be the character has something that he, she, or they have done in their past that not everybody knows about, right? And I told you it's the literal bomb sometimes, or it's the metaphorical bomb. It's the key to thinking about what it is your characters are hiding from each other, not from the audience, right? What they're hiding from each other is key to creating a compelling story. And again, The Departed, I put this in here, is the film that succeeds because of dramatic irony. The whole premise of the film is we've spent the first act seeing two characters. One character who's groomed to be a police officer, who's really been planted there by the mob, right? But we have empathy because he's forced to do it. We like him even though he's not the main character. And the other character is a character from the mob's poor neighborhood, the Leo character, who goes out of his way to go through training, become an officer, and get into a situation where he can go pretend and convince. And it's so dramatic how he gets finally into the mob, right? And they're both very likable and rootable, and they're going after each other, which is just fantastic. And it makes us it makes you realize that a person who is all bad, who is that easy to root against, gets boring. A person who is all good, right, who's so easy to root for, is boring, right? What we love characters who with flaws and who are hiding things, especially when we can justify why they are hiding things. So this is a major question for you in story development. Is your character hiding anything? And it can be something literally they're hiding, or it can be something about themselves that they're hiding. And when you show it to us in your story, and when I say we, I'm listening to your pitch, I'm reading your script, I'm watching your movie, right? When you show us the secrets and we're like, God, we don't want that to be found out, right? It's a way to have us invest in your story, right? Invest in your story, showing the bad. Now, when I teach you how to write scenes, the key to writing a great scene, it's the key to writing a horror film, a suspense thriller, is always, and I'm going to cover this again, right? Always reveal bad news, right? As soon as you can, right? What does that mean? Let's see the dark secret that's being hidden, right? Let's see that person in that house that your character should not be entering, with, that the bad, show the bad, and don't show the bad to the character, show the bad to the reader, to the person you're pitching it to. Tell the bad, or show it in your film, right? And it just automatically puts us on the edge of our seat, right? Puts us on the seats. And it starts character development with, hey, and when you're pitching me, and he has another family, she has another family in another town. What? Yeah, leads a double life. Oh, shit, right? I am drawn into this information, right? I'm drawn in for this information. So the secrets, right? Dramatic action. What is a character's dramatic action? This is the best way for me to say dramatic action, right? When I'm looking at all your characters, I don't expect you to put this in the character development. This is more of a concept for you guys to feel, a concept for you to think about as you're developing characters. A character has to decide to take action. I'm just talking about your heroes, but really it's going to be all your characters. But the characters have to decide to take action, right? In spite of the consequences, right? That means that your characters, when they decide that they want something, they can see the downside, but they really, really want that. And when a character, right? Oh, and again, this is a great sentence. Unlike real people, screen characters are willing to force the issue. They engage in a conflict. All of us right now, I guarantee you, everybody like in this room, everybody watching this video, we don't want dramatic action. We don't want to be forced into conflict, right? We don't want to do it. We just want our lives to be easy, right? That's not a movie. So when you're developing a character, maybe the character is developed on you or somebody you love, right? And what you're going to do is you're going to try to take it easy on this person. No, I don't want you to take it easy on anybody. You have to be willing to put these characters into situations that they are uncomfortable with, that makes the audience, the reader, the viewer uncomfortable with. That's dramatic action. And as we get into plotting, that's really your second act, right? Your second act. When you can put your character into a situation and make them go after something where they're willing to, I love this sentence right here, they're willing to commit an evil act based on a strong positive motivation, that's whiplash, right? Here's my dream. I'm willing to, let my father down. I'm willing to lose a potential love, right? To go after this, right? Hoping to turn whatever the positive is going to outweigh the negative, or to justify your actions, right? And this is one thing that when I was told this, it really changed the way I thought about character development. Nobody. Oh, I got a question here. That's really my main character. Oh, never mind. Sorry. Nobody thinks they're the bad guy. Right now, we all think we're the good person in our lives. We're all the characters of our own lives, right? We all think we're the good people in our lives. Now let's go into character development. If you have a villain who thinks he's a villain or she's a villain or they're a villain, that's cliche and on the nose. Every character needs to think they are doing the right thing for them, at least, and they need to justify it. And we need to see them justifying it, right? And that's why The Departed is so great. The Matt Damon character comes up from such dire situations that he's just trying to take himself out of the bad situation and make it good. And the longer he gets into it and he sees the relationship and the double life he's living, with his girlfriend and with everybody, he realizes he really doesn't have any friends. It gets sadder and sadder. And when he realizes that his life is empty and hollow, he gets killed, and it's perfect, right? But the villains do not think that they are the villains, and when they do think that they are, if we've seen movies where they're clearly evil to be evil, it's just roll your eyes, right? We want complex villains, right? That's why when you look at the DC universe, the DC, most of the DC heroes, Flash, Superman, Batman's interesting, right? Especially when they take them. That's what Batman keeps being redone and redone again. The villains are the great characters in the DC universe. Well, the Marvel heroes are all flawed. Iron Man's flawed, right? Thor is flawed. The Hulk is flawed. We have these flawed characters. We like them because they're not quite good. They're not quite bad, right? But the DC villains, the Joker, the Riddler, the Penguin, that's where all the color comes from, because we see them and we understand how they justify their actions. So when you're developing your character, we get to the antagonist side, we get to the other side of the line, don't go for easy. Don't go for easy. Make us see why they think that their actions are justified. It's really, really crucial to have a well-rounded, developed story, is to have everybody's action be justified. All right, so here's another thing in addition to the secrets, and I say the clock or a time limit, right? A clock or a time limit on character action, especially when we're talking about your hero's goal, is everything, right? Is everything. But maybe there is a clock that exists in a minor character, right? That could propel the story, right? That the hero's not aware of, right? So if you don't have a clear lock on the hero's goal, right? Maybe a parent has an agenda that we can be aware of. Maybe a friend has an agenda that we can be aware of, right? And they only have a certain amount of time to convince your hero to not go after what he, she, or they really want, right? So ask yourself, and all of your characters in your movie, right? Is there any clock? Is there any time limit for their action? And you might find an antagonist, an ally who has an agenda that has a clock that can create pressure, and that we can experience their dramatic irony, and maybe the hero doesn't really know about it, right? So thinking about putting time limits on all your characters is a fantastic thing. Now, here's something that anybody who wants to create comedy has to know. And when I learned this, I could not believe that nobody told me this. Being funny is not you don't become funny in the scene. You don't become funny by writing funny dialogue. You become funny by creating comic characters. And even in drama, the characters that are funny are comic characters. And how do you create a comic character? It's actually pretty damn simple, right? It's pretty simple. They don't have a goal, they have an obsession, right? They want something, it's an obsession. It's the only thing that they think about. And they think about it in a fixed mood or style, right? Fixed mood or style. And they not only have an obsession, something they want all the time, there's crazy thinking. there's incorrect logic. There's a misconception about himself, herself, or themselves, or the world, right? A comic character is somebody that when they walk into the room, we have an expectation of who they are. Now, my favorite comic character, and it's great that they're creating a movie based on this character, Buzz Lightyear, which will break this, which will not be a funny character. Buzz Lightyear will not be a funny character, but the Buzz Lightyear in Toy Story is friggin' genius. It's like unbelievably genius. It's a study in how to create a comic character. Buzz Lightyear has one obsession, right? He wants to defeat Zurg. He can be in a conversation with anybody, and if something about Zurg comes up, he will immediately become heroic, right? And that's his fixed mood or fixed style or manner. Always going to be, he's the most heroic person here. And why does it work? He does not know he's a toy. He thinks he's a real space ranger. It's the whole conceit of the first movie. And what's beautiful about the first movie is it's sad at the end, when he finally realizes that he's a toy. It's this weird, like, wow, we see the sadness. And he's no longer a comic character, ironically, right? He's no longer a comic character. And so he's funny all the way until the end, right? Most comic characters do not change. Think of the funny movies, right? And especially in sitcoms, they do not change in sitcoms. I love The Family Guy. I love South Park. Cartman kills me, right? Peter kills me. They are the Cartman in South Park. He's the worst. He's the most self-absorbed, selfish character who will do anything to make his life easier and to get what he wants, right? And it's episodic. That's why when you're creating a sitcom, you need comic characters. You need these characters. A show that I can continually watch over and over and over again. And I'm dating myself, but we all have our shows. Just ask yourself, what is your favorite comedy that you go to watch? If I'm bored, I will go watch Seinfeld. And it's not because Jerry Seinfeld, this observational comedian, is great. It's because George is such a comic character. Kramer's such a comic character. Elaine's such a comic character. Newman's such a comic character. Putty's a comic character. These are characters with obsessions and fixed attitude and crazy thinking. Back to Buzz. Buzz is so fantastic that in the second one, they're all together and there are these adjusted. They're all adjusted, and there they are. Woody's going to get lost and taken away, and they got to go find Woody. And what do? They pull a new Buzz out of the box, and nobody knows that this is not the Buzz who's arced and changed. This is the other Buzz. And so there's the use of dramatic irony. When all of the toys are thinking this is the Buzz, we get the comedy in this, and we get double layer of comedy. We get Buzz who thinks he's a space ranger, real space ranger, doesn't know he's a toy, fresh out of the box, and we get the toy's reaction to it. We get all deep levels of dramatic irony happening out. It was really, really a very, very smart move, right? So why am I bringing this up now? Some of you I know some of you are pitching comedies. I know some of you are pitching comedies to me. Look at your favorite comedies. Look at The Hangover. I mean, who's funny in The Hangover? Zach is hilarious in The Hangover. He's obsessed. He has a fixed idea. And he's crazy. They're going to drug the guys, right? He's going to walk around with a baby and name the baby Carlos. He's crazy comic character. But look at shows and try to identify, what is it this character wants all the time? What's this character's fixed attitude? What is this character's crazy thinking? What is this character's crazy thinking? As you're developing your own characters, right? Always look to the comic character. And you might ask yourself, well, why? This is how you write. You take that comic character and you put that comic character in a world or with people that are the most inappropriate. And how do you develop a story? You keep getting more and more and more inappropriate. When I look at movies that I've worked on, and I'll focus on the movies I worked on in the studio, like spent the most time on features and on the spin-offs on the series. The comic characters were never Never. The ones that get their own sitcoms were never and the ones that sitcoms that work aren't the main characters, right? It's not Alex, right? It's the Penguins. It's King Julian, right? Julian gets his own show, right? Julian gets his own show because Julian is this crazy, wacky, king who thinks everybody's going to serve him and everything's going to be great. But no, he's totally like, sir, he's totally out of his element wherever he goes, right? The Penguins, right? The Penguins ended up getting their own movie because they were such comedic characters and their movie didn't work, but their TV show did work. And why do comic characters work in 30-minute or 15-minute sitcoms? Because that's about as long as we're going to go with them, right? The reason Buzz worked so well in the first Toy Story is because he did arc and change. In the feature, we generally want characters to arc and change. Now, are there exceptions? Yes. Comedies that I think are funny, or I thought are funny, that I thought were funny at the time, like Dumb and Dumber or the Austin Powers movies. Austin Powers not going to change, Jim Carrey's not going to change, right? But it's hard to do that. It's hard to make us like go all the way through your movie and unless you have such an original comic character. And if you do have an original comic character, whether it's an animated character or a live action character, and it's based on you or it's based on somebody you're crazy not to use that character. Because comedy, when you have a comic character and it's a fresh original comic character that we've never seen before, everybody wants that. That's green. That's green lit. But when I teach you how to write scenes, you got to take that comic character, you got to put them in places where they don't belong, right? They don't belong. Now, to conclude my lecture for the day, and this is your tool, this sheet, and these are questions for you to ask yourself in order, right? In order. Hook. What is it? What is your story? What's it called? Does the title pop? Is it a Greek wedding, big fat Greek wedding, snakes on a plane? Do I get it? What is unique about your story, right? How is it different, right? What is the genre, right? What is it? What is my expectation? What's the name of this person I care about, right? What is this name of this person I care about? And more importantly, what do they want, right? What do they want, right? And it should allow me to see your story specifically. We have 1 day, we have 9 months, we have 1 year, we have 1 semester. What is it? Is there a clock? Better if you can get a clock on it. What's at stake? What's wrong with this character? What do they need to change? They need confidence. They need to stand up to a father. They need to let go, like in Good Will Hunting. They need to let go of home. Wizard of Oz, they need to appreciate home. What is the dramatic need? What does your character need to change about themselves or their world, right? And then what specifically in the goal? Is it a problem? Is it a villain? What needs to be overcome, right? And then who are the rest of the characters, right? Who are the rest of the characters? And never bring up a character if you can't give me their name, right? And if their age is important, you need to know their age. If the age is important, you need to know the age. What's their type? Give me that type quickly, right? What is their function in the story? If you're talking about this character, oh, this is the mentor character. This is the antagonist. Oh, this is an ally. This is a friend, or this is a friend of the antagonist, right? This is what is the function of this character, and what does that character want, right? What does the character want, right? And you don't have to get too deep, but what is the most significant relationship? What is the character's relationship to the protagonist, the antagonist, right? What's wrong with this character, right? Are they hiding anything, right? What is their function? What is their real function, their action in the story? What makes them take action, right? And if they're funny, what makes them funny, right? That alone should be a template for you to start developing stories. And maybe as you're going through this, you'll realize this is actually not going to be a feature film. This could be a short film. But I want you to think through this, right? I want you to think through this. And I want you to, after you pitch, and it would be great for you to do this, read through these, right? Clerks, right? The classic comedy. You can't say you won awards. You'd say convenience and video store clerks, Dante Hicks and Randall Graves are sharp-witted, potty-mouthed, and bored out of their minds. Between serving non-shop shoppers, the overworked counter jockeys, play hockey on the roof, visit a funeral home, and deal with their offbeat love lives, right? Napoleon Dynamite, a quirky, ninja-loving teenager growing up in the far reaches of Idaho. His life gets complicated when shady Uncle Rito shows up. A shy girl starts showing him some attention, and his best friend, Pedro, decides to run for president. Sunshine, convinced little Olive is a beauty queen material. Richard and Cheryl and the rest of the family embark on a life-altering road trip to a pageant in this madcap comedy. Struggling motivational speaker, our hero, and our protagonist, Richard, pushes Olive to win, while her silent brother, depressed uncle, and nursing home reject grandpa add their own quirks to the mix, right? Swingers, right? A look at 20-something guy, struggling comedian Mike despairs over his love life. So his four pals, Hollywood hopefuls, pump up his nightlife. Buddy offers him lessons in babes, even whisks Mike to Las Vegas, although their attempts at living La Vida Loco seldom work out are as fantasized. Mike meets one woman who might break his funk, right? Big Fat Creek Wedding, Nia Vardalos plays Tula, you would say Tula Protoculus, a single Greek woman who falls into love with a non-Greek, which is a no-no to her strict family, especially her commanding mother Maria and her traditional father Gus. They give it a cross between Meet the Parents and Guess Who's Coming to Dinner. How great is that? That's what I say. Meet the Parents, Guess Who's Coming to Dinner. Meet the Parents, you know, the Ben Stiller sort of outrageous comedy, Who's Coming to Dinner, very, very serious, right? And you get the idea. These all have spinal elements in them. I want you to write them in a manner that makes me want to, what? Read your screenplay, right? That's the whole point, is to read your screenplay. When I read your screenplay, then I want to buy your screenplay. But I want you to write something that has the hook, hero, what they want, right? But you're going to talk me through it first, right? But it wouldn't hurt you to like start putting thoughts down. And anytime you come up with an idea, you should always do this. You should spine it out just like this. What kind of movie is it? Who's the hero? What do they want? What's their need? What kind of movie is it? What are they trying to overcome? Who else is involved? And you should come up with your 250 word paragraphs, because that's what the industry wants. That's what they want. And you can save these ideas up. And where we're going to go with the class next is, how do we come up with actual scenes that you write? You're going to take these ideas, and the next part of this class is you're going to pitch me these ideas. You're going to write these ideas down. We're going to take these ideas out for a walk. That's where we're going next. We're going to take, what do I mean? Can you come up with a list of scenes that tell your story? That's the next test. And if you can't, guess what? We move to another idea. But I want you to be willing to like go through this exercise that I just took you through, right? What is unique about this idea? What is unique about this character? Do I see structure? Do I see the type of story this is? Are there other characters who are worth it, right? It's the first step, right? It's the first step in writing, right? And thinking through a story, and it will help you hold your whole story together. Now, I'm going to stop.